Hey there, Gregory Carlson here with the Calculus Building. In the previous video, we used the difference quotient to approximate the derivative at a point. In this video, we're going to just calculate the difference quotient for an entire function. Remember, this is not a derivative. It's not a derivative unless we take the limit as h goes to 0. And we're going to do that later, so don't worry. So here's how you calculate the difference quotient of an entire function. It's really easy. You basically just apply this to whatever function you're given, and I'm just going to show you how to do it. So first we have f of x plus h, and so since we've replaced x with x plus h, that means anytime you look in here and see an x, you replace that x with x plus h. So this difference quotient is going to equal 5 times x plus h minus 6. So that's that first piece right there. You can see that we've replaced x with x plus h. Now, let's subtract f of x. And this is important. When you subtract something like this, you really need to put parentheses around it so that we can do the distributive property on the minus sign. So minus f of x would be minus 5x minus 6 in parentheses. Okay? So we've done this part right here was f of x plus h minus, and then f of x is 5x minus 6, so we just write 5x minus 6 in parentheses. And then we divide all of that by h. And so that's it. We've just applied this to the following function, and now you should just simplify a little bit. And what's nice is you're going to notice that a lot of stuff cancels. So this will be 5x when you do the distributive property, plus 5h minus 6, and let's do the distributive property with that minus sign, so that'll be minus 5x plus 6. Then we're going to divide all of that by h. Okay, so I just simplified the numerator there a little bit. Hopefully all of that makes sense. And gosh, a lot of stuff cancels. 5x cancels with negative 5x. Negative 6 cancels with 6. So we just get on the top 5h, and on the bottom we get h. So let's cancel those away. So the difference quotient of this function is just equal to 5. That's not an accident. Remember how we looked at the end of the last video and said, hey, look, the rate of the change of this function is always equal to 5? That's kind of neat. So if you're finding the difference quotient of just, a little function like this, it's not an accident that you'll probably get the slope if you do it correctly. But let's do one now of one that's harder to do. So this one is going to involve a little tricky algebra, but hopefully you'll follow along. First, let's do f of x plus h. So every time I see an x, I'm going to replace it with x plus h. Now, you should put that in parentheses, but since everything's being added, I'm just going to omit the parentheses for now. Then we're going to subtract f of x, which is 4 over x plus 8, and divide everything by h. Okay, so now we're going to need to use some algebra to simplify this a little bit. And what we want to do is we want to subtract these two fractions. And we can only subtract fractions if they have the same denominator. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this x plus 8, and I'm going to multiply this fraction on the left by x plus 8 over x plus 8. Okay? Do you see how I did that? So I'm only multiplying by 1, so I'm not changing this fraction. And next, I'm going to multiply this fraction by this one's entire denominator. So I multiply this by x plus h plus 8 on top and on bottom. Okay? So that looks like it's going to be horrible, but it's actually not so bad. So I multiplied the left fraction by the same thing on the top and bottom, and I multiplied the right fraction by the same thing on top and bottom, and notice that they were the denominators from the other fraction. Here's why you do that. Because now, with this top fraction, my denominator is guaranteed to be this. Don't you agree? The denominator of this fraction is x plus 8 times x plus h plus 8, and the denominator of this fraction is x plus 8 times x plus h plus 8. So we've got the same denominator on the bottom for both fractions. So that means I can subtract 4 times x plus 8 minus, oops, like that. So that's just a kind of tricky, oh, and all of this is still being divided by h. So that's just a little tricky little bit of algebra right there to help simplify the fractions. So let's simplify that numerator even more. I get on the top 4x plus 32 minus 4x minus 4h minus 32. All of that is still being divided by, I'm not going to FOIL that yet, all over h. Okay, so now I just did some distributive property here and here. Okay, and look at some stuff cancels. We got the negative 4x canceling with the 4x, and we got the negative 32 canceling with the 32. So let's simplify that a little bit more. It looks like we have negative 4h divided by all of this stuff. X plus 8 times x plus h plus 8 all over h. Okay, you with me so far? Hopefully this is all making sense. One more simplification we can do, again, this is a little bit of tricky fraction stuff. Remember that when you're dividing by a number, you can do copy dot flip. Dividing by h is the same thing as multiplying by 1 over h. Okay, so think about it this way. If you're dividing by 3, like you're doing 5 divided by 3, okay, that's the same thing as 5 multiplied by the reciprocal of 3. Right? So it's just copy dot flip. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my first fraction, negative 4h, divided by x plus 8 times x plus h plus 8. You got it so far? That's just the top fraction. And instead of dividing by h, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal of h. Because then you'll notice that h cancels with h. Okay? Now, if you're a really good mathematician, you'll just notice that this h cancels with this h. But when you're just kind of a beginner at this, that's harder to notice when you have fractions inside of fractions. So that's why I did this extra step to show you. So the final answer, which does not simplify anymore, is this. So here's the difference quotient right there. That's the difference quotient for f of x is equal to 4 divided by x plus 8. It's negative 4 over all of this. Big deal, you might be saying. Who cares? That doesn't look very helpful. Well, just wait, because I promise soon it will be very helpful. So that one was kind of tricky. Let's do one more. This one is a little easier, I think, and I'm just going to show you how to do it. So first we do f of x plus h. So in our function, every time we see an x, we're going to replace it with x plus h. Okay, so there's f of x plus h. Now we subtract f of x in parentheses. Don't forget that. That's a common mistake. You got to put all of that in parentheses because we're subtracting the entire function. And we're dividing all of that by h. So there's the calculus step. Actually, it's not really even a calculus step. The rest of this is just going to be algebra to simplify. So let's do that. If I FOIL, remember this is x plus h times itself. Okay, so let's FOIL that. So that'll be negative 3 times x squared plus hx, which is 2hx, plus h squared, minus, let's do the distributive property, 4x minus 4h, and then we have a minus 4, and then this minus will just flip all the signs. So that'll be plus 3x squared plus 4x plus 4. All of that divided by h. Okay, I see already that some stuff is going to cancel. Negative 4x cancels with 4x. Negative 4 cancels with 4, so that's nice. Let's go ahead and do the distributive property here. So that'll be negative 3x squared minus 6hx minus 3h squared. Okay? And then we still have over here minus 4h minus or plus 3x squared. This is all over h. Okie dokie. More stuff cancels now. Those two cancel. And by the way, you might have done that in a slightly different order than me, and that's totally fine as long as you get to the same answer. Now we've got negative 6hx minus 3h squared minus 4h all over h. And hopefully you'll notice that there's one more thing we can do to simplify. Can you see what it is? Maybe pause the video for a second to see if you can notice the last thing to simplify. Did you get it? Because we have an h in the top of all of this, we should go ahead and factor that out because we could cancel it with that h in the bottom. So if I did that, I'll do it over here. We're going to factor out, whoops, drop my pencil. We're going to factor out an h out of the top, which gives me negative 6x minus 3h minus 4. Okie dokie. So notice that if I distributed this h, I would get all of this stuff, okay? I'd get negative 6hx minus 3h squared minus 4h. So now that cancels, and so we're left with the final answer of that. That's the answer. And I know what you're thinking. That doesn't seem very helpful. Well, just wait, because we're going to do one more thing, and then you're going to discover that this is actually the most amazing thing ever. So hopefully you understand now how to find the difference quotient of 3 different functions, and I will see you in the next video. If this was helpful, please like and subscribe. If you have questions, please leave them in the comments. Thanks so much.